today was a pretty big day, or over the past few days, we've got this intel leak. They've now discovered that it's an Air National Guard member, an E3. So for people that don't know, it's a very low-ranking guy. He's a 21-year-old guy from the Air National Guard who apparently got his hands on. And when we start talking about what this intel is, it's fairly amazing to me to think that he would have that kind of access. But let's put that aside for a second. So he's got a bunch of information that's embarrassing to our current regime. It indicates that they have been what people like us already know, because we are dealing with reality and not their rhetoric. But it's now revealing that their rhetoric has been a lot of lies about Ukraine, about casualty numbers, about us spying on our Ukrainian counterparts, and all these other things. But interestingly, he got a hold of these documents and he put them in a Discord server with him and his goofy friends that are being painted as the media, painted by the media right now as kind of pro-gun, Christian, white nationalist types. Go figure. So
it sounds like everybody joins the military, but okay, moving on.
Yeah, right. But it seems to me, here's my thing, and maybe Cody can back me up on this. With our background in the handling of classified material, especially compartmentalized material, especially signals intelligence reporting and all that kind of stuff, we're talking about specific intel that's siloed off anyways. The signals intelligence would be in a different batch, and this other intelligence, it's very unlikely that this guardsman would have any access to that stuff by himself, And then whether he actually organically got it himself, or whether, like as we're seeing in a lot of other instances in our current environment, that federal agents are involved in the actual commissions of these crimes, who knows, right? But it seems fairly obvious to me that what they're going to use this for is to get to roll back more civil liberties, to violate people's rights. We're gonna experience more invasive censorship. We're gonna find some sort of the Resist Act or something else is gonna get authorized. It'll be similar to the Patriot Act. It will be under the auspices of protecting us from ourselves. And the days of even conversations maybe like this, or certainly a lot of the things that you talk about. I mean, you're no stranger to being in their crosshairs. But what do you think about what I just laid out there?
I think the consequences are exactly what you're talking about, whether or not this was by design or, because you remember the Patriot Act when it was passed after 9/11, all it really consisted of was all the failed legislation that had been tried to get through Congress for restriction. All they did is take all that failed legislation, bring it together in one package and push it through, call it the Patriot Act, and people voted for it. They voted for the legislation that they denied earlier because it was a frontal assault on our constitutional rights. That's what the Patriot Act is. And I'm afraid that you're 100% correct that the fact that this data sat on a Discord server, in a Minecraft room or something of that nature, and then floated around, 4chan and Twitter and Telegram, they're going to say, well, we have to now go in and monitor the totality of this to make sure this never happens again. No, that's not what you need to do. What you need to do is make sure that an E3 who has been, why the heck is an E3 having access to the briefing documents of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Why is an Air National Guard unit, the 102nd Wing, Intelligence Wing, why do they have access to this? How did this happen? That's a question that should be asked.
Well, I would tell you how it happened. It's Aaron and I were talking about it beforehand, and this is just my swag at it, but it's information laundering. It's he's about to quit, but so I'm a prior military deception planner. I'm a prior information operations planner. Like you launder information through certain ways. So basically what Aaron and I were saying before we got cracking, we were talking about this, was like, look, we've been following your work for a while, Colonel McGregor. I mean, Aaron and I have been saying that the Ukraine's going to lose since fucking day one. We've been saying that Zelensky's a puppet since day one. I mean, we've lost Raider friends over this. One of them's hopefully listening to this as soon as it shows up tomorrow. But so sooner or later, the normies of America your Mountain Dew swilling, commuting all the time Americans that think television is real, right? They need to be told that the Ukraine's going to lose, right? Like this information has to come out sooner rather than later. So I think what the twist of it is you now funnel it through a way, and that was, who knows, man, like, every plan has a pace plan, right? Like, basically funnel this information out in a way that it comes to the audience through a hateable target. So the normies, the blue anons are going to learn that, yeah, Biden and Austin and Miley and all these other dudes have been lying the entire time, right? But that's not going to be acceptable to their fucking brain housing group, all right? So what they're going to need to hear is the reason why they know this is that list of, I think that his buddy mentioned Waco and Ruby Ridge. Like somebody interviewed like one of this guy's buddies, and the guy mentioned like Waco and Ruby Ridge. So basically, like they're reorienting the American ire, like they're shifting fire from the on-call target of Russians who are about to win to these American service members, or like these American like right-wing folks that are now telling everybody the secrets of the administration, right? Like, I did hear Colonel McGregor say today that basically, he said there's been a bunch of people telling the truth about this, and he mentioned your name today. But he also said that, hey, like, yeah, those documents were classified, but I mean, they actually do tell, like, the noise is going to be, why the fuck did the E3 have them? Why does, like, all this nonsense, right? The signal is these people are lying directly to your fucking face.
Yes.
And I've got major problems with the United States military right now. I mean, Aaron, I think, has done a much better job of transmuting his experiences into like spiritual gold than I have, right? Like, I'm seriously, like, as far as I'm concerned, if you're active duty in the military right now, you're a fucking coward. Like, I don't even look in the fucking camera when I say that shit. Oh, I was going to ask you before this gets too squirrely, is all three of us are Marines here, right? We're different levels. Aaron's a retired enlisted guy. You're an officer. I'm a chief warrant officer. So we've got the gamut covered, right? And we've got from the 80s. Aaron went in the 90s. I'm a late 90s into 2000s guy. So, I mean, we're it, bros. We've got the thing covered. Never have I ever, in the history of my fucking 23 years serving the DOD, heard a distinct definition of what a domestic threat to the Constitution is, nor where I could find it, nor who the approval authority is for who the identification of that threat is. They showed me all kinds of threats out in the fucking world, like the Taliban. Like, please, how the hell was the Taliban?
You heard Milley take a stab. You heard Milley taking a stab at it during congressional testimony. Kind of, he was saying that he's interested in finding out what this white rage is all about, and
somebody asked his wife,
not explicitly, but yeah, they've it seems to me that when they need to, right? They needed us all. They needed guys like me and Cody to be willing to go be the executors of their foreign policy thing, right?
Right.
Now that we've gone and done that, though, we're now kind of a liability, right? Like guys like us are a liability now. Well, so they've got to kind of cast their spells in order to they're really going to have a problem if they keep lying like this and getting caught.
Yeah, because I already asked Aaron, and we had a Raider buddy here over the weekend. I think I asked him too. And so, did anybody ever explain to you what a domestic threat to the United States was, right? Like, we've all seen it in The Rock. They're yelling at each other in the shower scene about, we all swore to defend the Constitution against domestic, all threats, foreign and domestic. So have you ever in your longer experience than us, talking to all these starred individuals, did anybody ever say, like, did ever come up in a conversation? Then I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
I've had the same conversation with people, and they don't have an answer, so I gave them the answer. Joe Biden's a domestic threat to the Constitution of the United States. Almost every member of Congress is a threat to the domestic threat. The deep state. I mean, I was at the 35th anniversary of the signing of the INF Treaty, and there was a reunion of all the old arms control people. They brought in a senior Biden administration arms control person, and we asked the question. We said, hey, Joe Biden ran on a platform of of bringing in what we call the single purpose, sole purpose doctrine, which means our nuclear weapons only exist to deter other nations from using nuclear weapons against us, or if they use them, to retaliate in a manner which is punishing, which I believe is the only reason why we should have nuclear weapons. But right now we have a nuclear posture that says we can use nuclear weapons preemptively in a non-nuclear environment any way we dictate. So we're basically the global terrorist is what we've become. And Biden said he was going to do that, but he came in and he didn't do it. We said, why? He's the commander in chief. He can just simply order this done. And this person said the interagency wasn't ready for this. Now, I've worked Washington, D.C. for a long time, and I know what the interagency process is. It's a process of coordination. But the way this was described is that it's no longer a process, it's an entity. It's the deep state. The interagency wasn't ready for it. So the interagency is a threat, a domestic threat to the Constitution. But here's the biggest one. The greatest domestic threat to the Constitution of the United States of America is the American people. How can you take an oath to uphold?
That's the best answer I've ever heard.
How can you take an oath to uphold and defend something you haven't read, you don't understand? Now, there's people out there who think they know what the Second Amendment is. They have an interpretation of it. But there's a lot of other amendments, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the Constitution. The Constitution is a living document. It's a breathing document, and it's been interpreted through time. The whole concept of the Constitution is to help us create a more perfect union. So, that's a process. It's a growth process, and it requires we, the people of the United States of America, government of the people, by the people, for the people. That's who should be the greatest defenders of the Constitution. The defenders of the Constitution don't wear uniforms. The defenders of the Constitution are the American people because it belongs to us. It is our document, and yet we ignore it. We don't know it. We don't understand it. And then we tend to, allocate responsibility to defend it to people who take an oath to what? How many people who have taken that oath actually went out and took the Constitution and said, damn, I better read this thing and find out what it is. I just took an oath to uphold and defend. How can you defend something you don't know? So the greatest threat to the Constitution domestically are the people who are supposed to know it, who don't know it, who then subordinate or give responsibility to defend the Constitution to people who are now armed and empowered, but they don't know the Constitution. So they're going to be called upon to do things like enforce. I mean, Department of Homeland Security, with all due respect, every badge-carrying member there, you are the Gestapo. You are an enemy of America. You don't belong in my country. I don't need you. I don't want a homeland. I want a country. I want a nation. I want a home, but not a homeland. I don't need a department that secures my homeland. We don't need it. It's the FBI is a literal criminal organization. It has been from the day it was created with J. Edgar Hoover. It hasn't changed. I was FBI guy. I know them very well. I've worked with them. They're thugs with badges. That's all they are. And we've militarized the police. The cops used to be, Mr. Friendly. Now I understand cops have always had a tough job to do. And I've watched The Untouchables, and I saw Sean Connery's character. And okay, cops are tough and they have a tough job and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, cops are about policing the community. They're of the community. They're part of the community. And yet what we've done now is we've militarized them. They now dress like they're stormtroopers and SWAT troopers. And they approach every problem as if they're the enemy. If a guy with a badge has a gun and he's so scared that he has to pull the gun, then he doesn't deserve that badge. Okay, you are a peacemaker, a peacekeeper. You are not a SWAT team. You are not an assault force. You aren't here. We are not the enemy. We are America. And your job is to secure us, not to, contain us. So I think the United States has lost touch with the Constitution. The greatest threat to this domestic threat to the Constitution of the United States of America is we, the people of the United States, because we don't know it, we don't respect it. Therefore, we're not going to demand that it be implemented properly.
I agree.
That's a great answer.
I'd agree, and I'd add one thing to that. It's also the problem with Americans and their discernment. So, let's take Ukraine. Okay, Americans view everything as if it's a Marvel movie now. So they watch. Okay, I'll just give you an example. So Sean Penn, who's an actor, flies to Ukraine, and he meets with Zelensky, who's an actor, and he gives Zelensky an Oscar, which is an award for acting. And the American people see this, and it doesn't trip any alarms for them. reality itself is trying to communicate with you, and you're still like, Russia bad, we're the good guys. It's like, no, they just showed you. Watch it. Watch what just happened. It's not real. They're creating a narrative for you to, just so that you chew your cud and figure that, like you said, someone else is handling it. I can go back to my phone or whatever I'm into. Like we've abdicated our responsibility to for everything. We're literally just sitting in our pens waiting to be fed, and it's kind of like we're. How much can we really complain? Like, we're fired up, we're paying attention, but we need everybody to kind of be like, all right, what is going on? Why are things the way they are? And people, you might get this all the time, where you kind of try to go down this road with people and they just kind of look at you like,
it's too much work.